One country where we can gain insights into the working of the multiplier is Germany. After the unification of East and West Germany in 1990, the government and people of Germany were faced with the stark contrasts between East and West. The West had a powerful and prosperous economy. The infrastructure in the East was crumbling and industries were collapsing because they were outdated and inefficient. Jobs were being lost and unemployment soared, making the contrast even greater.
I worked for a brewery here in Wittenberge for 16 years. Their turnover was declining steadily, so that at the end I was fired. This is due to urban development of Wittenberge. Big industrial firms were closing down after the reunification. The population here was declining rapidly. Before reunification, there were 30,000 residents. Now there are just under 20,000. This means that 1/3 moved away. Well, I would say that I would certainly apply for a job somewhere else. There's no point in staying here. Employment is going down more and more. Everything was so much better here before reunification. Everyone had work. And now there is not much left here anymore. Everyone is moving away to Hamburg or down to Bavaria. Everyone's going west. The youth has no opportunities here.
Keynesian economists felt that the only solution to the inequality between East and West was to increase spending in the East. The government believed that such investment would cause employment to rise.
One of the problems of increasing government expenditure to try to reduce unemployment is that it creates government debt. Government is now spending more than it's receiving in taxes. So one solution to the problem, if the government wishes to spend more, is to raise more in taxation. That way it keeps a balanced budget. But if it keeps a balanced budget, doesn't that mean that there is no multiplier effect of an increase in aggregate demand? Surprisingly, the answer is no. If the government raises taxation and then uses those taxes to invest, there is a theory which says that national income will still rise, even if the amount of investment is only the equivalent of the amount of increase in taxation. Output will rise by the extent of the increase in investment. That's what we'll try to show you. That is the balanced budget multiplier.
Using the balanced budget multiplier, the German government decided to increase taxes in West Germany to pay for investment in East Germany. According to Keynesian economists, this tax makes the West poorer and the East richer, but on average, when there's unemployment, it makes the whole country better off. But not everyone is convinced that it's a good idea. Some economists believe that the solution to unemployment is to do nothing. Unemployment, they say, pushes down wages. These lower wage rates encourage firms to hire surplus labour, a process that continues until full employment is restored. Many West German taxpayers also have doubts about a tax that adds over 5% to their tax bill and transfers $22 billion each year to the East.
You are now paying to support the East German economy.
7.5%.
Yes. And I mean, do most West Germans think, well, we're one nation, that's the sacrifice we must make? How do most people think about this Solidaritätszuschlag?
Most of the West German people are tired of this. Emotionally, it's a good thing, but for the economy, right? It's very difficult, and for a German economy, it's a big problem.
Before we examine the maths, we need to make our model of the economy as realistic as possible.
Now, when we looked at the multiplier before, we assumed that out of all the income that households receive, they either save it or they spend it. Actually, that's not strictly true. One other thing that they do is they pay taxes out of that income. So in this case, we're going to recognize that households, when they receive income, have some of it taxed away, spend some of it, and save some of it.
we must also remember that household behaviour may well be different in different countries, so the size of the multiplier in East Germany may well be different from what it is in Poland or elsewhere, but the algebra remains the same anywhere. According to Keynesian economists, the balanced budget multiplier is central to government control of the economy. So now we look at the idea of the balanced budget multiplier and the mathematics associated with it. The initial impact of the balanced budget increase is the increase in government demand, investment demand or whatever, less the decrease in consumption resulting from the tax increase that is being used to pay for the increase in government spending. So we'll call the increase in government spending delta G, and we'll call the decrease in consumption as a result of the tax increase delta C. Now the decrease in consumption is the tax change multiplied by the proportion of that household loss of income that would have been spent. So we'll call that delta T, that's the volume of tax being raised, times little c, that's the proportion of that income that households are now not receiving that they would have spent if it hadn't been for the increase in tax. So let's now establish the balanced budget multiplier. The increase in spending is delta G. The decrease in spending because of the tax is delta C, which is, as we've agreed, delta T times little c. So the net change is delta G minus delta T times little c. But when we have a balanced budget change, delta G is equal to delta T. So we can substitute now, and we get delta G minus delta G times little c. Remember, all we've done there is taken the term delta T little c and replaced it by delta G little c, because G is equal to T when we're looking at the balanced budget change. Now, delta G minus delta G times little c is the same as saying delta G times 1 minus c. Remember that little c plus little s has to equal 1. All of the income is either saved or spent. So 1 minus c can be replaced with little s. So the initial increase in expenditure is delta G times little s. But the total increase is this multiplied by the multiplier, where the multiplier is 1 over s. So delta y is equal to delta G times little s times the multiplier 1 over s. But now look, little s times 1 over little s is equal to 1. So delta y is equal to delta G. Now that's an interesting conclusion, because it says if the government increases government spending and increases taxes enough to pay for it, output will rise. And it will rise by whatever is the change in government spending. The balanced budget multiplier is 1. Output rises by the increase in G. And this is regardless of the size of the terms little c and little s. So our algebra has helped us to see a surprising conclusion. We might have expected that if the government increases G and increases T by the same amount to pay for it, there would be no increase in demand and no change in output. In fact, the balanced budget multiplier has led us to see that that is not so, and we've come to this important result that the balanced budget multiplier shows us output increasing by whatever is the increase in government expenditure.